Hello and welcome to the Hort Science online Brexit discussion. I'm Rachel Anderson. I'm here today with Sally Cullimore, the HDA's policy manager, and grower Jonathan Whittemore, head of production and procurement at Johnson's of Wixley, and vice chairman of the HDA's ornamental management committee. So as we know, the Brexit transition period has ended and growers are now experiencing changes and challenges as a result of the UK's departure from the EU. Okay, Sally, because of these challenges and changes, the HTA this summer launched a Let Britain Grow campaign. Can you please briefly explain to our audience what the campaign is about, what it's calling for, etc.?
So Let Britain Grow, the overarching ambition is to get the UK and the EU to the negotiating table and to negotiate a plant health agreement that basically recognises each other's plant health areas in order to reduce the green tape that we are currently seeing for importing and exporting, and also including Northern Ireland.
Okay, and how is the campaign going so far? For example, are you speaking to government quite often about it at the moment? How have they been quite responsive to the campaign? How's it going?
So we have two different prongs to our government discussions. One is with the civil service, with the main department being DEFRA, and we are in virtually constant discussion with DEFRA and in both plant health areas and trade areas as well, and also going cross-departmental with that. And then we have the political side of things, with where we have the ambition to get in front of Lord Frost. Lord Frost being responsible for UK-EU negotiations, in particular with the Northern Ireland Protocol, and that is going very well indeed. Can't say anything right now, but hopefully we will be able to say something in the near future.
Well, that's fantastic. It's great to hear some good news. And will you be reiterating some of these suggestions in the government's plant health strategy, which I understand was launched in September? Is that right?
Right, yeah, September. We absolutely will, while also describing what difficulties are out there. We've done a lot of evidence gathering, case study gathering. We have a piece of data research that we released alongside the Let Britain Grow campaign that said that UK businesses, well, GB businesses, are facing about £30 million worth of extra costs within the supply chain. And that is for very little tangible gain. Okay. It's just a lot of paperwork, isn't it, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that actually, if you could, because I understand you did conduct some research. What were some of the other findings that were quite surprising from that research about how it's affecting business? I think I read somewhere in that report that HTA member growers who are importing plants from the EU have needed an additional 20 people days on average to administer.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. And also that what this results in is inflated prices, and the end result at retail for our retail consumers is that we expect or are seeing price rises of around 12% for an average plant.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that actually myself going shopping for plants. Jonathan, what are the major ways in which Brexit has affected your business so far? For example, like we just mentioned, the people hours needed to get through all the admin, increased costs, obviously, labour shortages maybe, HGV driver costs. Go on, if you want to reel some off.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that, to talk headlines, there's an additional cost burden, and we've got an additional bureaucratic burden. Our customer service levels have been reduced. Supplier relationships have been put under pressure. Travel is.
How so? Can you explain that? The supplier.
Sorry,
could you explain how the supplier relationship?
I'll go into a bit more detail on all of them, but with because we've got an additional bureaucratic burden, I mean, that's not just for nurseries in the UK, that's also for the nurseries in the EU. And they're also experiencing additional costs. So what those guys have got now is they've got us bugging them for information that we need to be able to process our orders. And this is all, you know, additional work to what they were doing previously.
Yeah.
And they find it hugely frustrating. You know, they see the need to employ more people. They see the additional costs, the additional hoops that they need to jump through. And ultimately, the people who they are talking to are, you know, the guys on the ground at Johnson's, for example. So, you know, we're the ones who get the kind of the beating from the suppliers because they're so frustrated about what's going on. And that puts a real, real strain on the relationships that we're having. And that's been compounded, of course, by COVID and not being able to travel and actually sit down in front of our suppliers and have a beer with them and a sensible conversation.
Yeah.
But there's also the way in which costs are being applied. Often there appears to be no logic to it. So we're saying to suppliers, well, I don't understand why you're charging us, 250 euros for Brexit-related costs when there's another supplier charging us 50. And the response that you'll get is that's just what it costs us. That's what we think it costs us. So, you know, there are issues like that, which which again don't make it easy to have the relationship that we were used to. When I was saying, to give a kind of a bit more detail, you know, the additional cost burden, you know, that's coming from plant health requirements, both in the UK and the EU, around things like phytosanitary certificates, plant health inspections. There's issues around wood packaging, which now needs to be heat treated. There's customs costs, both UK and EU. And then, as I was saying, when we were talking about supplier relationships, there's additional administrative costs on both sides of the water. And then there are other things. You'd mentioned the driver shortages. That's also impacting on the costs.
Okay, yeah. And I guess, as Sally mentioned, it's basically like consumers who will be experiencing these price increases when they go and buy their plants from the garden centres or the supermarkets, what have you.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's going to add to inflation. I mean, we are selling to garden centres, but we're also selling to landscapers who are doing very, very big planting jobs that might be government funded. Well, you know, the costs are going up for them as well.
Yeah, so felt all around really, the price increases. So
absolutely, yeah.
I imagine that some smaller growers have felt quite overwhelmed by the amount of admin they're now facing. What advice would you give to these growers, or any growers who are finding it difficult to adjust to the changes at the moment? For example, from whom or from where can they seek advice? HTA website as a start, obviously, but that question is actually to both of you, Sally and Jonathan. So where can growers find advice from if they need it or help? From my perspective, it's a very difficult question to answer without understanding specific business issues. But you kind of said where can you find advice, and I'm sure that Sally will help out with this one. But one of the issues that we had as a business was that there was actually nowhere that you could go where you could ask a question and get a straightforward answer as to what you needed to do in a particular situation. And we still find that as as things change, that there is no definitive place where you can go. And as we ran up towards the end of 2020, we were asking ferry companies, customs agents, plant health, what it was we needed to do. And often we were just told that they didn't know.
So we had to find out for ourselves. I mean, one of the things that I would say is that if you are bringing things in from the EU, I mean, a lot of Dutch growers will cover everything off for you. What we did was we engaged a good customs agent in the UK, and they have been a help in not only enabling us to get stock in from the EU, but also when we've been trying to get stock out of GB into Northern Ireland, for example, they have helped. But I think really the kind of the overarching advice that I would give is don't worry about what's in front of you. Just crack on, deal with what you can see, address the issues that you know about, and if you can find them, embrace the opportunities.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jonathan. Sally, anything you'd like to add to Jonathan's tips?
Obviously, HTA is here for members, and we have been possibly even at some points last year one step ahead of our membership, but at least working really hard on their behalf, engaging with government, trying to get answers to those questions that Jonathan mentioned earlier. I would recommend to investigate those growers and businesses that aren't HTA members. There is real value to being a HTA member. You do have the opportunity to pose direct questions, join in webinars, join committees and groups where you can pose questions and hopefully get answers, and also highlight issues that you might be coming across that where maybe we have the contacts within government to go and get those answers. At the time we are still running webinars on new and upcoming processes and procedures, new legislation for cross-border trade. We don't really call it EU-Exit anymore, Rachel. We call it cross-border trade.
Okay, yeah, cross-border trade.
Yeah, there are still processes and upcoming dates to contend with if you are going to import or export plant material from the EU. So we've got border control posts, for example. They will start being used from 1st of July next year.
Yeah, they were going to be my final question. Can we talk about these, please? Because I think there's something that some people might not be aware of. What are they, and when are they coming into force? Yeah.
So a border control post is literally that. It's a location at the border where consignments that have plants on board will be selected as they come into Great Britain for inspections. There's a set frequency of checks for that, and the plant health inspectors that are currently out in the field inspecting consignments at places of destination, the pod system, will now be based at border control posts. So there's a lot of operational procedures that we're still a little bit in the dark about. And we're very, very happy that actually the proposed date of 1st of January for you to utilise a border control post moved to 1st of July. It does give us a little bit of breathing space. We're not going to get the deck chairs out or anything and sit around just wait for it to happen. We are engaging with both government and port operators to make sure that processes are clear and that we can get the whole inspection process as smooth as possible, but there are worries out there now. I'm sure Jonathan will say a few of those.
Is there anything that growers can do to prepare for these coming into place next year, or just sit tight for now?
Well, HTA is organising visits to border control posts that are up and running. HTA have visited one already at Tilbury Docks to see the new facilities there, and we're organising them in conjunction with DEFRA and AFA around the country as we go up to Christmas. Haven't got any dates at the moment, but I would encourage people to look out for those. Unfortunately, you do have to be an HTA member to join in those. But also bring your EU supplier, bring your haulier. Let's get the whole supply chain visiting these control posts to make sure that processes that are in place are fit for purpose, and that if there are any gaps or holes in that we can call them to task and get them sorted out before we're forced to use a border control post. because the pod system will be dismantled.
Yeah, I think that's a great point as well that Sally makes. It's you know, businesses have to engage. I mean, it's very easy to look at what's coming and to say, do you know what, I don't like that, I don't think it's going to work. But actually it does come to a stage where you just need to put that to one side, engage with you know, with all stakeholders, and you know, embrace what's in front of you, and you know, really kind of make sure that you understand what the implications are going to be in terms of you know, the systems that you're going to have to work with.
Okay, all right, thank you both so much today for your time. Those are all the questions that I had planned to ask you for today. Yeah, we hope that was useful, everybody, and thanks again, and best of luck. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thanks.